is Real Kyper and Bourne on Sportsnet 590 The Fan.
Austin Matthews ended his longest goal-scoring streak, drought of the season, 5 games in fine fashion, notching 59 and yes, semi 60 in another historic night for 34. I'm Nick Kypreos, Justin Bourne, Derek Brandeo, Jennifer Rolnick, and yes, super fan Sammy McKee gets his cherry on top of the regular season.
I don't cheer a whole lot anymore when I watch sporting events. Maybe just Jays because they're the most electric team on earth at the moment. But I actually gave out like a high school Leaf fan cheer when he scored. When he scored 60.
Can we hear it? Can we hear it?
Yeah, F yeah. Ooh!
Oh my God, that is so embarrassing. I hope you were alone.
I wasn't. Well, I was with Allison or whatever. But
And she's still with you?
Yeah, it felt really, really good to see that puck go in the net.
I think it did for Dubas and Keefe, too. You saw their celebrations? Keefe gave their...
yes, he doesn't have to play in a meaningless game against a team we might play in the playoffs on Friday. You got the home ice, you got the 60. It's just a beautiful thing. Beautiful
accomplishment.
It is something that no one can ever take away from him. The 21st player in NHL history to notch 60 goals and the first American in NHL history to notch 60.
Is that right?
I don't know. I think I read it somewhere. Sammy, can you verify that for me?
I'm not sure that's true, but I'll look it up.
Brett Hall. Pat Kane.
Well, Brett Hall was born in Belleville, right?
Yeah, I'm talking born and raised in the U.S.
Have you ever seen Austin Matthews have more time to handle a puck down the middle of the rink, dust it off, set his feet, and shoot a hockey puck than that? I mean, that was the most... I just never seen him have that kind of time and space.
Well, you're playing against one of the worst teams in the league.
That was let me just say, piss poor showing by Detroit.
Horrible.
That was so useless.
One of my good buddies,
travel
a Red Wing
agent on line 1 after 20 minutes, maybe.
Boys are in Barbados or something. I mean,
not trying to get hurt before golf season. I have one of my good buddies is a Red Wings fan, and I was like, "Holy crap, man! You watched this?" He's like, "Oh, we're missing Larkin, or we're missing." I'm like, "Buddy, just give it up. You suck. Like, I don't think you need to be watching." Anyways,
well, let's start off Kyper's Clippers in fine fashion here with the man himself, Austin Matthews, on getting goal number 60.
Love it.
Oh, it was pretty special, honestly. Just the reception from my teammates, the crowd. I mean, everything. It just it just kind of sends chills down your bones. But yeah, just kind of hard to put into words,
Yeah, you said something he'll never forget. That's it, right? It's even if he never wins anything, it'll be Dennis Maruk and can sign hats.
I get all of it, and I don't blame him one bit about the attitude towards getting 60. And we heard him say, for the most part, all the right things before and after in the last week, and especially with Sean McKenzie during an interview where he said it's not the end of the world.
Right.
But I told the boys I'm shooting.
I'm shooting it. I love that. And it does go to show.
See, I got two sides of it, right?
Yeah.
And that is that it just emphasizes what last night's game was all about. And that was Austin getting 60.
And Jack stopping the puck.
Sure.
That was the whole thing.
And I think it should have been about Austin Matthews getting 60 in a team. You're playing one of the worst teams in the league, and he's got 2 away versus a not very good goalie. I think that's kind of what it should be about.
I mean, along the way, they got home ice advantage in the postseason.
That happened. That works.
Which is fine as long as between now and what we think could be game 1 that you can flip the switch and get everybody back on a page that says we got to be at the top of our game. I didn't particularly like Austin's game in the last week.
No.
Yeah. No, it was and for good reason.
Mm-hmm.
It was geared towards 60. It was geared towards his attitude where I'm shooting it.
Mm-hmm.
And Detroit knew it. They did a piss poor job, but they still knew it.
Yeah.
Florida knew it. I mean, there was a scenario where this isn't about our shaping up our team game. This is about getting a guy to shoot as many pucks as he can until he gets 60.
I think most coaches would say, if my guy can toggle to a mindset where he scores twice, great. Don't really care what else happens. So I think they're pretty okay with the way things.
And they'll talk about the way they're going into the playoffs. I think just to talk about how all these teams are going in, I think the Lightning have been winning a lot, obviously, and they're getting hot. But it's not like there's one team that's had to be fighting for their lives that finds a way in, and they've been playing playoff hockey all the way down the stretch. Like, everybody's kind of known for a long time. And I think they're going to have lots of practice time here up until the playoffs start. Like, I think it's easier to kind of flip the switch because you're not playing against another team that's been fighting for their lives like Tampa was when Columbus got them or something like that.
We got a terrific show coming up. We're so glad everybody's on board here live on our Sportsnet YouTube channel, wherever you're downloading us on the various podcast platforms. We're so happy that you're aboard. We also got Gord Stellick coming up in about 15 minutes. Adam Oates in about 40 minutes will stop by. And if there's anyone that knows something about 60 goal scorers, it's him. He experienced it twice in his career with the likes of Brett Hull and Steve Yzerman in Detroit. In the second hour, Sean Reynolds will come by and he'll kind of put a bow on the Winnipeg Jets season and what we can anticipate from here on in out west. And Sammy, if I'm not mistaken, are we teeing up Leaf tickets this week?
Yeah, that's
for game one.
Yeah, we're not giving them away yet today.
Not yet,
but yeah.
But just know that we will be, and to tune in, I think Friday, right?
Yeah, it's a big deal.
It is a big deal.
It's a big deal. Yeah.
It is a big deal.
So you can watch Steven Stamkos' hat trick in game one.
Oh, don't say that.
Easy.
Good vibes only today.
Easy. Let's get back to Austin Matthews before you run away with that thought.
You know what might be a good way to get back into Matthews is you mentioned Adam Oates is coming on with us. Great passer, a guy who's set up Hull and who's the other one, Yzerman, a cajillion times each. Matthews had some nice things to say about Mitch Marner. You don't get to 60 without playing with some good teammates. Why don't we go there next and listen to Matthews on Marner?
Yeah, I mean, it's all this doesn't really happen without him. I think, he's been such a big part of our team success. And then, individually for myself, I think we've just trying to grown together as individuals and as players and leaders on this team. And, he's a big reason why, the success that we've had this year. So, I owe him a couple. He gave me a couple nice passes tonight, but like I said, he's been huge for us all year. He's been unbelievable, especially when he came back from injury. He's just been driving this team.
Well, and there's no question he knows it after various disappointments that no two guys will carry more weight going into game one
together
with him and Mitch.
Yeah,
100%.
And, it was a thing all year where people like myself kept saying, give Tavares Marner. But these two didn't want it to happen, right?
There's no way Matthews gets to 60 without Marner. Like he said in his clip, there's a lot. I wonder, I maybe probably could have looked this up before the show, but how many assists he had directly on Matthews' goals. It probably feels like it was 25, 30 times that he was right there getting it. So I like, it's really nice for him to take the time to say that in the postgame because it's really important, obviously.
Yeah.
And it just feels like, for obvious reasons, everything's been geared, the attention, the ice time. I think he double shifted a couple times, the extended power play time that Austin hung around.
I thought the power play was a little awkward because they were just looking for him at times, right? And it was all right,
But the last one when he got it, they were kind of firing it from all over the place, and they weren't necessarily really passing it to him a whole lot. It was almost like they were over double thinking it, being like, hey, we are thinking about Matthews, but we don't want to make it look like we're trying to pass to Matthews all the time. So let's get a couple shots off
Mission
here.
not accomplished.
No, I know,
that.
but it kind of, I don't know. It was a nice goal anyway.
And then the other question mark, and not to get too off topic, but we brought in Marner in the conversation, is here's a guy that's going for 100 points on Friday, and will it get the attention or the love from either your coach or your other players to really focus in and help Mitch hit 100 like you just helped Austin get 60? I don't see that happening here.
No, I think it's the game before playoffs here. He's 3 points away, not one. I do think that Keefe said today, though, that they will take it into consideration about how their lineup looks on Friday, right?
Yeah, we got the clip. Want to hear it?
Sure.
Yeah, it does, and it will. At the same time, much like I felt with Austin yesterday, I mean, I was happy for him to get that and have that moment. Yet, in my mind, he's already a 60-goal scorer. Again, because you round up, and especially when you factor in the games that he's missed and the pace that he's on, and I feel the same about Mitch. I mean, he's already a 100-point guy. To me, that's how you sort of describe players. You're either a point-a-game guy, you're a 100-point guy. You don't really talk about what comes in between, and Mitch is right there. He's had an unbelievable season for us, and is a huge part of everything that we've done and accomplished in the regular season here as a team, and he shares in the individual accomplishments, such as what Austin had last night here with 60 goals. So
what's the roundabout record for 60 goals for players? I mean,
what do you mean?
I mean, if all the players that got 58, who got credited for 60 in the NHL? The roundup. Do the NHL record books have roundup
I don't think so.
records?
I think the point is the point per game pace, because both these guys miss 8 and 10 games or something like that. So he's saying they're, if they play a couple more games,
doesn't really get acknowledged in any record books or history books.
No, there's no point per game history books, is there?
Let me ask you this, guys. Hearing that clip,
Yeah.
kind of sounds like Marner might not play.
You know what it sounds like? Sheldon's blowing smoke. That's what it sounds like.
Agree.
He wants to say the right things. If, in fact, it gets back to Mitch or Mitch hears it himself, it's nice to hear that you're giving me some love on not blowing off 100 points. But I kind of questioned the last 2 games of the season. Do you want another game where you ask Marner or Matthews to play 20 minutes? You want them coming close to 20 minutes on Friday?
No, I want neither of them in.
I don't want.
Last night they were 20 minutes because you're chasing 60. Do you want to do it one more time for Marner to get to 100? And he needs 3 points, like you said?
I think it's important. 100 points is a big deal. Like, I'm sorry, it's not as big a deal as 60. Lots more guys get 100 points and 60 goals. But 100 points is still important, especially for a guy like Marner who's never gotten there before. I do think it's important, but what you have to weigh is it more important than sitting on your butt and making sure you're healthy for a massive playoff series starting on Monday?
Yeah,
it's a
not
tough
even
balance.
Close. It's not even close.
I know it's not. I know.
You're trying to talk yourself into something that can help Marner get to 100.
So you don't want to play him, Kip?
Again, Marner's a little different for me because I don't worry about him as much as I would other. There'd be a list of guys I would sit out before Mitch Marner because I want them to load up for game 1. I don't necessarily worry about Mitch Marner, but I mean, if you want to pull him out just from the mere fact that something crazy could happen, he could get hurt, I'll buy that. I'll buy it, but there's other players I'd rather consider sitting out.
I do think they probably take into consideration how last year's playoffs went when a lot of people said their guys just played too much. I think I wrote an article that Matthews and Marner played too much in round 1 last year. And they were playing 25, 26, 27 minutes a night.
There was overtime.
Yeah, and that did have
one
a
or
factor
two over 30 minutes.
Yeah. So that did drive up their numbers, but they just, they seemed gassed by the end, right? I mean, I think that was kind of the consensus. I wonder if that won't play into the decision. I don't know.
And I think the opponent has to factor in the decision as well, in terms of it's not a team out of the playoffs. This is a team that potentially down the road, if you get a series or two, you could see in the playoffs. And I mean, Brad Marchand is employed by them. Charlie McAvoy is like they got guys out there on that team that will do not the smartest things. So I think that has to be taken into consideration as well.
All right, let's go to some other prominent voices on the Toronto Maple Leafs on Matthews' historic night of 60. Let's start with the captain, John Tavares.
Some of the chants talk about MVP, and there's a lot of players having great years this year. A lot of goals being scored, but I know I'm being biased, but to me, it's not close. He's just the way he goes about it, the way he does it, the consistency. Some of the things he's done is it continues. You continue to shake your head at times. Just his ability to just stay with it and just play his game and stay focused on what he does and not everything that going around him or that it's going really good. I think he just wants to be a difference maker game in and game out. So, it's very fitting the way that things were able to come together tonight and what we clinched as a team.
That he is a difference maker and the most dangerous player.
Do you think Tavares is sick of answering questions about him? Like, do you think Tavares wants some shine for himself and all this?
I think in a perfect world, he'd love that, but it ain't coming.
It's not.
No. And I think he's smart enough to understand where his place is right now. John's biggest challenge.
Don't say skating.
No. Is making sure that the drop off between Austin's shift and his coming up isn't a very wide margin.
Presumably, Austin and Mitch are going to face the best defense that they have to offer in Tampa Bay. So John should get, easier matchup. Not that there's an easy one out there exactly with Tampa Bay, but in theory, you'd like to see that line. So I think Nylander probably goes back with Tavares. Seeing that play they make together last night, the chance to get.
Yeah, I haven't seen that play in months, by the way.
I know.
I just saw it against.
It barely happened all year.
I saw it against a team that's, talking daily to their travel agent.
Oh, yeah. No, it's a great point. Listen, I don't like them together either. I spent a lot of time this season talking about how I don't love them together, but Mikheyev, Kempf, and Engvall is so effective. Tavares and Nylander just feel like they're going to end up together with Kerfoot. That's just how it feels to me. I don't know. I did some of the lineup configurations going into that first round here. Looking at the fourth line, that puts Blackwell, Simmons, Spezza as a fourth line. I don't know where you guys sit on that, but Clifford in instead of Blackwell.
Yeah, I think
remember his name today. Apparently,
I was gonna say Blackwell, same thing. Can I ask you about the part of that clip that I thought was interesting, saying that he's far and away the MVP, and me saying, like, the whole year being like, it's a runaway. McDavid is having a stupid year here, boys. And like,
Edmonton has done Jay Woodcroft has done a hell of a job.
For sure.
And McDavid has 40 points in 20 games. He's well over 2 points for a very long stretch here.
He's got
on average.
He's got 44 goals and 78 assists.
So I think, keeping these questions separate. If you can give me one player for my team for the next 10 years, I probably take Connor. Connor's my guy. But I think Matthews has had a better season defensively. He's put up far better numbers in terms of shot suppression and takeaways, and he's been more physical. To me, Matthews' all-around game puts him above McDavid this year.
They would, but if I was an Oilers fan, I'd be like, you guys are absolutely nuts. Anyone who's saying anyone other than Connor McDavid is the MVP is absolutely nuts. That's what I would be saying if I'm an Oilers fan. I'm not. I'm the opposite, in fact.
He had 16 more points. He's played like 8 more games. I don't know.
There's just an emotional thing now with the Toronto Maple Leaf getting 60 goals.
I think it's probably close to a lock at this point.
Majority of the writers probably are Leaf fans. Voting.
They do a breakdown by city. They try not to make it one city heavy.
But my point is that this is there's
definitely the most eyeballs.
It's a one for the ages for a Toronto Maple Leaf player. I'll be shocked if they don't all vote for Austin.
That the nerds have Austin on this, I think pushes it over the top. That like the guys who do the more granular stats and stuff will say that this is one of the best seasons a player has had in a decade. Mm-hmm. I think that'll push it over the top for people.
Yeah, it's a narrative. Like we've talked about this before. When I was making the case,
that's like statistical,
and
not
like
narrative.
Well, I know, but
do they?
LeBron is the MVP every year in the NBA. Has the best numbers. He drags teams, but he doesn't win it every year because there's teams that have better years and guys that have there's teams and anyways.
What's the split on the voters in the East time zone compared to the West time zone?
Oh yeah,
right?
I'm going to say 3 out of every 4 voters is west of Winnipeg or east of Winnipeg.
75% go to bed probably after the first game.
For sure. There's no doubt the West Coast gets screwed.
Yeah.
I've been snoring through 80% of McDavid's games. So
It's like,
It's
and you're like, what, 29 years old?
no, I'm older than that. I go to bed early.
How about us?
yeah.
All right.
We got Gord, I think.
We got Gord coming up. Well, you want to go Keefe? Let's go Keefe on Matthews getting 60, and then we'll go to Gord.
Sounds good. I threw Derek under the bus there. We're getting it here in a sec.
All right. No problem.
I guess all you can say is just that it's special, it's unique, it's rare. I'm just really happy for him. He works extremely hard. We know the abilities that he has, but he works extremely hard at his game. He works extremely hard off the ice. He takes his craft very seriously. So to see him at the top of his game and to reaching these milestones, it's outstanding. So I'm really happy for him. I could tell he was really happy. And I just loved how our fans took care of him tonight, too. The fans were outstanding in recognition of his accomplishments. So it was a good night.
What he's saying is, I'm really happy for me because I really, really need him.
Yeah, I need him happy. He seems happy. We're happy.
Very.
Good things.
And here's a guy that we really, really need on the Real Kyper and Bourne show. Stellicktricity, Gord Stellick. So, Gordo, welcome to the show.
Kippy, I just did my hydro bill, gas bill, and all the garbage stuff. There you go. Pretty apropos.
Buddy, you get all that for free, right? Because you're Stellicktricity.
I'd like to think so. Apparently not. Apparently not, Kippy. Regular taxpayer, bill payer.
Okay, so you're somewhat of a Leaf historian. Where do you rank last night amongst all the great moments in Leaf history? And of course, we have to include Sittler's 10-point night. Where does this rank?
As good as I've seen, Kippy. Daryl, I was fortunate to be there for Sittler's 10-point night. It just kind of evolved that night, where and there were extenuating circumstances about Dave Reese's situation. That's take nothing away from Daryl. Just the run in '93 was so we talk about some team things. There were wonderful things that Doug Gilmour did back in 1993. There wasn't a specific milestone that he hit. I was there for all three of Rick Vive's 50-goal seasons. I'm really glad that Ricky's been getting some props for what he did. There was a buzz and an aura and excitement when he did that, particularly the first time. But as far as anything, I mean, way back when Terry Sawchuk got his 100th shutout as a Maple Leaf, he was the first to get 100 shutouts in the NHL. That was kind of cool. Like I really vaguely remember it as a kid. But Kippy and Justin and Sam, that was just great last night. And before to go for 50 when the fans waited till the end and the fans being pumped, and when John Tavares scored, you said, "Damn, does this mean they're not going to pull the goaltender and give Austin a chance to score on an empty netter?" And then he scores that goal. He scores like a highlight reel goal for his 60th. So that one will be a great audio video that'll run for ages.
So what do you expect the Leafs to do now? Because there's nothing left to play for on Friday night. Obviously, they're playing the Bruins, a team that they may meet down the road. Who's in? Who's out? What do you expect them to do with resting guys?
Well, minor point last night, Jack Campbell, that's probably the easiest shutout he's got, but that's been, to me, the most important team thing that's gone on. Agreed. Is whatever number of games Campbell has played, he's looked solid after being hurt and not playing so great. But, Justin, I'm not a big fan of resting guys. Like, if you're banged up a bit, fine. But otherwise, you've only got, one game over the week. And just, the course of just, I'd go out and play and get ready and, maybe you can roll four lines a little bit more. But, John Tavares, it was a back-to-back game, the Saturday and Sunday. But I'm thinking the opposite of the way most people would. I'd almost put the lineup out. You want to be there for game one.
We talked a little bit about Mitch Marner. I've said this guy's got that engine that just doesn't quit. I wouldn't worry about him so much, but he also has a milestone, what we think is still within reach, especially the way that he's been scoring in the last 6-8 weeks. But what do you do if you're Sheldon Keefe and you want to maybe curtail some of those minutes Friday night, and he's giving you the hairy eyeball, get me out there.
I'd get him out there. Like, the way Austin Matthews was being set up. Like, you want that kid in house league that, that once you get a hat trick, you can't score anymore. And you got to set up this one kid who hasn't got a hat trick. And that's what they're doing with Austin. I'd get him out there. That's, Mitch Marner's had a hell of a season. That's an incredible accomplishment. If he get 100 points, that would be great. And I think the team would be as motivated to do that as they were with Austin last night. And let's give Mitch a chance. If he gets 98, 99, almost made it. If he's stuck at 97, whatever, it's a hell of a year. But one more crack at 100, and I think it's really important.
So Justin Hall doesn't play last night. The Leafs D-core is 7 names deep, and maybe 8 if Sandin. I know Sandin's not eligible on Friday, but will likely be eligible shortly after that. What do you expect the Leafs to do game 1? They're going to play Tampa Bay, who's pretty physical. I think, personally, I think it might come down to Lyubushkin or Liljegren with Hall in. Well, who do you see in and who out?
Hey, what a happy predicament. No longer
Right.
Jake Muzzin gets injured, and oh my God, like against Columbus, and Leafs are done. They don't have depth on D. And so I'm taking that line about it, that obviously, and you've been part of the coaching staff, Justin, about breaking it down, and they've got ideas of what they like and don't like. They don't really have defensemen that I don't like. I'd always liked Jake Gardiner as a guy, but when he was in your top 4, as you saw, when he went to a better situation in Carolina, or even a top 2, it's a different animal now compared to those kind of days. So if Jake Muzzin, I said to you last time or 2 weeks ago that I don't expect anything out of Jake Muzzin. If he's healthy, it's a bonus, and he seems to be showing something. So that's a bonus. It's funny how Liljegren's kind of had a charge at the end of it to get in the coach's good book. So I wouldn't be surprised if Justin Hall's the odd man out, and then I wouldn't be surprised if he's back in game number 2. And the big thing is, if you get 2 defensemen hurt, you're not screwed. You've got the depth you've never had before in recent years.
It almost feels like yesterday we were talking about a Tampa Bay team that was running out of gas and what's wrong with them. And they overspent for a guy named Hagel. And now we're looking at one of the best stretches of 5 games for guys like Stamkos and Kucherov we've seen throughout their history. Does that make you nervous as a Leaf fan a little bit?
No, not well. Like, first, as a Leaf fan, the whole being nervous thing, and the other part is stop with the preordained excuses. Understand it's going to be a tough match against Tampa Bay. Understand it may not be the, quote, fairest of first-round draws, much like Minnesota and St. Louis. But again, you had it set up for Columbus and Montreal, so quit crying over spilt milk and go out and just kick their butts. You've got home ice advantage, which you haven't had before with the crowd there. They've had to, a few things like, Goodrow Coleman and Yanni Gordon, all that, they've had to make some tinkering. They've lost a little bit in depth, even though other guys like Ross Colton and that seem to have filled the void. But they're a great team. They're the 2-time defending Stanley Cup champions, and no one. I don't think anyone could have taken them lightly. They were in a bit of a malaise, but the last week, like you say, Kippy, they've roared from the ashes to show what it takes. But to get, and you won the cup, 16 wins in that kind of environment and what you have to give. And, it's a lot. And I'm not saying I question, can they do it again? I just say it's a lot to try to do it again. And why not make it our time in Toronto? Why not get 4 of 16 wins, or 4 of 8 wins, or 4 of 12 wins, or 4 of 6 wins against the 2-time defending Stanley Cup champions? Every time, Chicago won 3 cups and spread out, LA won 2, but someone beats them the next year. Why not beat Toronto? They're full measure the Tampa Bay Lightning, but so should the Toronto Maple Leafs be.
Gord, who's feeling the pressure the most in Leafland? We had a little chat on this yesterday. Is it Matthews and Marner? Is it the front office? Is it Shanahan? Is Sheldon Keefe have it? The goaltender? Where do you go? Who's feeling the most pressure going into this first round?
Great question. Because
Thanks.
First of all, the pressure, if you're Kyle Dubas, would be coming from Brendan Shanahan, and I have no idea if I believe their relationship's still really strong. Pressure, if you're the coach, would be coming from Kyle Dubas. It's so whether you win or lose, the most important thing, as you saw in Vegas with Gerard Gallant and in New York Rangers with what went on with JD and Jeff Gorton. Hey, if someone's ticked, even if you get the numbers, you're out of a job. I think Pressure-wise, to me, it still comes back to the big guns. It comes back to the big guns, and it comes to Jack Campbell in goal. And really, every team, every team in the playoffs, you want depth in that, but really, when you win it, you get solid goaltending, and your big guns come up big. So so the ones that have year in, year out shared this disappointment, I think, feel the pressure.
We're with Gord Stellick, former Leaf general manager and New York Ranger assistant GM, also host of Leaf Nation on the Fan 590 and Sportsnet. When we talk about the pressure and what the players may feel, or even Kyle, ultimately, Gord, you know this market better than anybody, or as much as anyone out there. Where does it really ultimately lie in? The fan base or the media? Who will dictate what kind of vibe or temperature is throughout this series, or if in fact the Leafs lose? Like, do you need to find out where the heat truly is coming from if you're even contemplating changes if you're unsuccessful?
Well, I mean, there really is no, the media thing is so different now. There's really no media pressure at all. There's Zoom calls, and it's just really, really different. You don't have biting.
You're telling me that the media couldn't call for heads like they have in the past?
I think the media were just pissed how terrible they played the last 2 years in the playoffs. It was unacceptable. It's not a tough place to play. There's a lot of pressure. You get recognized all the time, but you get your butt kissed. If they win one series, it'll be like they won the Stanley Cup. So to answer your question, it'll come from the fans, because the fans aren't stupid. And the last 2 years was flat out unacceptable in the playoffs. So, don't do it again that you have a pot. Well, 2 years ago, the regular season wasn't all that great, but this year, don't ruin another regular season by a lame, uninspired playoff performance. Like, if it's hard pressed and down to the wire, and that first year when they played Washington was a tough 6 games, or it goes 7, that'll be more palatable for the fans to accept that kind of series than going out with a whimper rather than a bang. So it'll come from the fans, and ultimately it's up to ownership and management to decide what they do or don't do.
Gordo, all the reasons the Leafs blew it in the past couple of years, and it's fine to say they blew it, I think the one that gets glossed over the most is Jake Muzzin not being there, right? He had 2 injuries, both times non-contact injuries. Something just gave out on him. They need this guy. They're a different team when he's in. What did you make of his performance last night, his first attempt to come back to hockey, and what do you expect from him?
Okay, first, no Jake Muzzin or anybody excuses this year. Injuries are part of the game.
All right.
I'm not, sorry, I sound like I'm admonishing you. Sorry about
no,
that. I
it's
apologize.
good. I like it. Bring the heat.
Yeah. But I've been encouraged what I've seen of him, right? I mean, early on when you hear about having 2 concussions this season or whatever he may have had, I had worries about it, but I agree. But I agree with you. He's an important part. He brought a neat, like when they made that trade, he brought an ingredient they didn't have, and it's been a really important ingredient, and then to add TJ Brody and other things like that, and have Morgan Riley back to being more the Morgan Riley like he whatever it was 3 years ago, whenever was the vintage kind of year. There's so many positives. So what I like, because you earlier talked about all the D and who's going to sit out, so the sum is either greater than the parts or certainly equal to the parts, and the parts are the best they've been in this modern era, in this recent era. So if he's healthy, that is a huge play.
But if he's not, is it deep enough? Can you envision success if Muzzin's at 60% or they decide to take him out of the lineup? Can Sandin come in, and can this team still be successful?
Well, we'll find out. You think about Mark Fraser, who got hurt all those years ago, how well he played that particular year. And, that he wasn't like a core 4 guy at the start of the year. So that's the way Sandin's played at parts and Liljegren's played at parts. And also, you knew about Muzzin's situation. And to their credit, they added 2 Ds in Giordano and Lyubushkin. That part of it was, any kind of worry about. So yeah. And again, I go back to injuries being part of the game. Already with the Blue Jays, they're having a phenomenal season, but stop making excuses about injuries. Whatever. And just go. Steven Stamkos didn't play for Tampa Bay till the final game that one time they won the Stanley Cup. So anyway, I'm a little bit off on that one because I'm tired of that excuse, but I'm bullish on Jake Muzzin, especially if he's healthy.
My one thought going into game one against the Tampa Bay Lightning are they're going to try to push the Leafs around. That's the Leafs' reputation. They're soft. You can push them around, yada, yada. I'm wondering if in game one they wouldn't think dressing a heavier lineup, go with Simmons, go with Clifford, go with Lyubushkin. Is there any merit to that, or they just got to dress their best players?
You know, and this is where I'm interested what Kippy says, because I mean, look at that Nashville-Calgary game last night, the sense of they're going to play each other. And, you know, a guy like Lucic, who's a guy that, you know, plays on your top three lines.
What a truck.
Can the Leafs get him?
But and Kachuk,
They
right?
Who
Who you're not going to get, or maybe you can get for $1 zillion the year after this. But so, like, how much of that do you have in the lineup without dressing Kyle Clifford and Wayne Simmons? You know, do you have enough of that to stand up to task? Well, Kippy, what do you think?
Yeah, you need it on the bench. I really believe that you need it on the bench. At the end of the day, is Simmons and Clifford at 6 or 7 minutes going to factor in? Maybe possibly in game 6 or game 7. And is it Maroon? Are these guys going to be huge factors in this series? Like, when it's all said and done, I mean, I think it's important that they're on the bench. And let's face it, that whole thing really explained a big picture when Maroon was calling out the Leafs soft. That is their perception coming in. We're playing a very skilled, talented, soft team. They're going to come out and take advantage of that, or run them, or do whatever they can, and we'll see where the penalties lie. We'll see how the officials call it. Can the Leafs take advantage if they get into penalty trouble? So many questions here.
So you want to see him dress heavy the first game?
I think that they need at least 2 of them there. I think Clifford and Wayne Simmons are a lock in game 1 based on what we heard out of Maroon and the perception of Tampa and the lack of respect that they've shown the Leafs.
Colin Blackwell taking stats. Go ahead, Gordo. Sorry.
So, Justin, you're talking before about Engvall and Mikheyev. Man, have they ever really brought their games to higher levels this year?
Mikheyev's getting feisty.
Yeah, and you're right. So the kind of thing to what Kippy's saying. So now you have 3 lines out there that are the kind of 3 lines that you want, that could be feisty, have a little pizzazz, but also some skill. So then more so, you're not looking at a 4th line that's saying, oh my God, and maybe I need a Nick Robertson to plunk in a line to get some offense and move up and down. You can dress those guys for those specific roles. And like Kippy said, it's like, you know, just when someone starts chirping and do that thing and that, you know, that's that word soft, which the Leafs shudder about and feel is an unfair criticism, but they feel it's skilled,
it's
right?
Out
they
there.
feel
It's out there.
Well, no question. And it's because they have not had that playoff success. And was it because they were soft, or was it because they just couldn't get the jam or the intensity or the skill or whatever it may be to play their best hockey when they should? We'll find out. And that could bury any illusions of that line in a big, when you start having playoff success, however you were playoff round, that's not soft. Like, if you got a skilled team the way the Blackhawks would win it and chasing Patrick Kane around, that's exhausting. That's hard hockey, right? Compared to the LA Kings playing big hockey, you know, years ago, that kind of California style, 7, 8, 9 years ago. So that's the kind of thing. And to get that soft thing gone, you have to have playoff success.
The Leafs have one more on Friday night against the Boston Bruins. Hey, you're in for a big run during these Stanley Cup Finals or playoffs as well. What are you doing to prepare for the Stanley Cup playoffs? Like, this weekend, would you order a Dante's Fiesta and a Diet Coke, or what do you do?
Well, I'm sipping the Diet Coke right now. I mean, hey, I'm not that far. I saw you and Sam McKee taking on Don Valley Golf Course. So, oh my goodness, I don't know if you set a course record when you're there, but I'm actually going. I'm golfing on Friday to a public course establishment, and
nice.
just got, I'm gonna be in playoff form, Kippy. I'm gonna be in playoff form, whether it's the Dante's Fiesta that we didn't know was served 3 people when I ordered it for myself many years ago. But
when are you golfing? When are you going?
Friday.
Nice.
Friday.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, make sure the best 2 balls you hit all day aren't when you step on the rake, eh?
don't worry, Kippy. There's a very if I was officiating the playoffs, it'd be no problem. It'd be a walk. It'd be like that NBA referee Tim Donaghy. So anyway, I'm all good. Hopefully it's good. Let's get some playoff weather too. Like that's what hockey playoffs and basketball playoffs generally. It's kind of nice weather. That's what I remembered in my school days on that. So let's get a little bit of that.
It's supposed to be 0 tomorrow. Don't worry, bud.
Sucks.
Okay, well
Sucks
there you
right
go.
Now. All right.
That's why I don't do weather.
Yeah.
He is the host of Leaf Nation on the Fan 590 in Sportsnet and our favorite, Gord Stellick. Thanks, pal.
See you guys.
Thanks, Gordo. What kind of players, Gord? Anyone play golf with him here?
He's gonna be ready to run through a brick wall.
Oh, yeah, you're fired up.
my
Hey, let's go.
He
Go
is
Leafs.
fired up.
Yeah.
He is fired up. You've got an article, right, on Sportsnet about 5 or 10 things that
10. Yeah, 10 Leafs thoughts. It's all this stuff that we're talking about,
Yeah.
more or less. No, you're getting it here.
the guy on the top of my list that should not play Friday.
Yeah.
Mark Giordano.
Ooh. Oh, okay, mine's Jack Campbell. Do we have time
Is
for
it?
this? Yeah. Give me a Geo. Why Geo? General oldness?
It's a throwaway game.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna have to ask this guy to play 20 plus minutes every other night.
He's
And he's
suddenly become
almost
really
40.
important, hasn't he? That's-
Really important.
Yeah.
Questionable Muzzin makes him even that more important.
Yeah.
Don't play him Friday. I don't care what he thinks about starting up engines.
Agreed. Totally agree. Campbell, for me, what's the point? Guy just got his shutout. He's feeling good. You need him. It's going to be in playoffs. It's every other night. You don't expect Shalgren to get a start.
Okay.
Campbell the night off.
I know we're going to go to break, but can we play Jack Campbell on whether or not he wants to start Friday?
Sure.
Yeah, I just go in when coach puts me in and feel really good right now, just like the team does. And, like I said, whenever I get the nod, I'm ready to go.
Does that sound like a guy that's going to give Sheldon any feedback on whether he wants to play or
Jack,
not?
do you want to play? Well, up to you.
I'm ready.
If you want me
It's
to, I'll
like-
play, or I won't play. I don't care.
All right. So then Sheldon, make a call.
Yeah, he'll say you're not playing. Congrats to Eric Shalgren, who somehow got like a dozen starts this year. What a year for that kid. I mean, life-changing, I'm sure.
Take away that start against Tampa. And
Yeah. I mean, he's got us thinking some things for next year, for sure.
And where's
He wants us to break.
where's Peter Mrazek in Shelgren's backyard right now, or what? Where is he?
He's with Detroit in Barbados. That's
Okay.
where he is.
There he is. Okay, let's take a quick break. When we come back, Hall of Famer Adam Oates talking Austin Matthews. You're listening and watching Real Kyper and Bourne on Sportsnet 590, The Fan.
Kyper and Bourne on Sportsnet 590 The Fan.
The Kypreos, Justin Bourne. Real Kyper and Bourne. Any chance we see some names unfamiliar in the lineup Friday, you think? Marlies?
I don't know if they can call up, like, it's like 4 emergency call-ups after the trade deadline. I'm not sure what they're able to do, but yeah, I expect them to fit in a whole bunch of names
All right.
we're not familiar with.
Let's go to our next guest who would definitely know what it's like to have a 60-goal scorer beside him. He's done it on a couple occasions. Let's bring in Adam Oates to talk a little Austin Matthews and the experience of playing with pure goal scorers. Now, thanks for joining us, Adam. First of all, with your type of game, you're such a natural passer. Everything would remain the same. But what we've seen against with the Leafs the last few games is maybe pushing the flow a little bit more towards getting Austin 60. First of all, give us your thoughts overall about Austin and the play around him the last few games.
Yeah, hi guys. You know what? Let's put it in perspective a little bit. Like 60 goals is ridiculous. It's fantastic, and I got the opportunity to play with a couple of guys that were clearly natural goal scorers, and our skill sets complemented each other. And it's funny because Brendan Shanahan's part of the Leafs, who's a fantastic goal scorer. And I remember talking to Shanny that the one thing goal scorers don't get enough credit is how smart they are. They know how to shoot a puck. And clearly Austin knows how to shoot a puck. It's fantastic. But it's their IQ. Because one of the things a goal scorer has to do is time it with the guy that's going to pass to him. And it's funny, if you look at his first goal last night, he had to time that pass coming out from behind the net. And that takes IQ because it takes a chemistry, that takes understanding when to be ready to shoot and when to find that window to be open. And that's the one thing that they don't ever get enough credit for. We always think about them shooting, which obviously, yeah, they do have a great shot. I get to play with Brett Hull. He had a fantastic shot. But it was his IQ that, to me, separated him from others.
And is that something that you can teach? And I know, that's something you do in hockey is help a lot of players with the offensive side of the game. Can you educate a player on how to arrive somewhere at a better time?
Yeah, I believe that for sure. And obviously a guy like Austin has an innate ability to do that. He's developed it himself. But do I think that you can grow your skills? Of course I do.
Adam, when it comes to playing the game, the focus is speed, but like you said, it's a timing thing, right? I mean, there's really good times when you need to slow the game down, and that's what I guess good goal scorers can also do.
Yeah, and you know what? For sure, he knows when to time that window of opportunity. He knows fast he has to go to enter the zone. He knows how to slow himself down as a left-handed player to be ready for a pass out of this corner or that corner. He knows he's got to time Mitch Marner, Tavares, Nylander. Obviously on the power play, the rules are a little different. They got the best power play in the league. What a coincidence. And these are all the things that go along with the IQ that make guys special players.
So how much would a team be aware of a milestone? Kyper and I were talking a little bit about the team seeming to look for Austin a little bit more on the power play where he eventually got it done. Is this something, when you were with teammates that are chasing these big round milestones that you're aware of and thinking you're trying to get them to puck, or does it just kind of happen more naturally?
Probably a little bit of both. You go out for a hockey game, it's still you're trying to win a game, you're trying to do a good job, protect yourself and all the rest. But at the same sense, you're still also looking over your shoulder for something. I had a chance to play with Brett Hull when he was going for 50 in 50, and he got it in Detroit. And I remember, I don't think I touched the puck without knowing where he was the whole game. So yeah, you're trying to do both at the same time for sure.
And you're a natural passer. What about the guys that weren't feeling more pressure? Was it abundantly clear when Hully was out on the ice that he had that Matthews mentality last night? I don't know if you heard his interview, but it's like, boys, I'm shooting tonight.
I would say, well, don't you shoot every night?
Good point.
But yeah, like at the end of the day, if Kyper, it's the same rules as always, right? It's the same rules as the empty net rule. Like at the end of the day, hey, Austin's on the ice. What are you doing shooting the puck? Right? Like, let's get him the puck.
Yeah.
And everybody, oh yeah, sorry, bro. And it's like, so of course that goes on. That's the game within the game. That's the fun part. That's what we all miss, right?
So looking at the Leafs as a team, how do you think they shape up heading into the playoffs? They've had some disappointments here in Toronto. Tensions are high. This is a tough matchup, likely going to face Tampa Bay here. What are your thoughts on where the Leafs are at?
You know what? I watch a lot of hockey, and I can't say that I watch so specifically to watch how the team is, but obviously you're going to play Tampa. They know how to score goals as well as Toronto does. 2 good power plays. So I would imagine some of the messages before the series is let's not give them 4 or 5 power plays a game. Let's try and play sound defensively. We're going to score lots of goals. They do know how to score. They got to keep it out of their net. And then however the coaches plan to do that would be part of the strategy.
Adam, when it comes to now Austin transitioning a great historic goal-scoring regular season into the playoffs, did you notice when you were playing with the likes of a Stevie Yzerman or Brett Hull, just the feeling of the pressure that they would put upon themselves going into the playoffs? And, sometimes can it go against you? Is there things that you could do as a teammate alignment to alleviate some of the pressure? Or did it seem seamless with these guys from the regular season to the playoffs?
Great question, Kyper. And the answer is everything. Everybody's personality is different, right? Like once again, I play with Brett, and Brett is such a happy-go-lucky guy. He wasn't worried about it. Where I was a more analytical type guy. I wanted to have a good playoff. So sort of like what mattered to me was trying to get something first game so that you got rid of the zeros because they're back to zeros again, right? So I wanted to get rid of the goose eggs where Hully never thought about it because he was so confident in himself and that type of personality. And all of a sudden, first game he scores. Next thing you know, we're off and running again. But it is sort of important for the guys to get off, right? Like you want to get your production. You want to prove that you're earning your money and nothing's a fluke. So, like the first couple games, it matters. You want to get going.
Hey, where do you stand on, I guess, talent versus physicality? And maybe that's not phrased properly, but the Leafs have a D-man in Timothy Liljegren who's pretty skilled and skates it well. They have a guy in Lyubushkin who's less skilled, but he plays physical hockey. I think in general, the game is moving more towards speed and skill, but the Leafs are kind of deciding which guy to go with. Do you lean in a particular direction going into playoffs that physicality still matters, or do you always lean towards the more talented player?
Well, once again, that's a pretty tough question. The answer is, there's always physicality. There always is.
Yeah.
Some guys, just because you're big or small, you still handle physicality a certain way. You have to be able to handle it. It's a huge part of our game, and sometimes in the playoffs, depending on the series, you can get a little bit more violent. So you have to be able to do it. Small guys. There's lots of small guys in this league that still can handle physicality. So to me, it's more the skill within being able to do that. Like you could be a physical defenseman, and you can run around and hit a few guys, but if you don't clear the puck and the other team scores, that physicality is wasted. So to me, it's a combination of everything.
Adam, do you anticipate less power plays historically? That's always been the case here, but when we talk about specialty teams, this is where the Leafs' bread and butter has to be. They've been very dangerous, shorthanded, as we know, leading the league in shorthanded goals. The power play to me is somewhat not as sharp coming down the stretch here. How much emphasis would you put back on a power play going into game one, knowing that opportunities may be limited?
My feeling has always been, Kyper, that special teams don't necessarily win you a cup, but I think they're important contributing to it. Because if you think about it, you're penalty killing. Well, if you have a good PK, that means your goalie has made some saves and he feels good about himself. The guys that are killers feel good about themselves. If you have a good power play, that means every goal, 3 guys are getting a point. So your top dogs are getting production. So generally that means that, 15 of your 20 guys are executing what they're getting paid for. So special teams go a long way in making guys feel good about their game. So I think it's very important. And, you're playing another team that I can't say I know what Tampa's PK is, but I know their power play is very good. So both teams have high-powered offenses. So we got to be really careful how many power plays we give them.
Mm-hmm. I was interested by a comment you made there before about how there's always physicality and how players deal with it. How do players that are smaller, and I'm thinking about, I can't remember Mitch Marner getting hit this season. Patrick Kane almost never gets hit. How do these smaller players survive in a world where there is contact regardless of whether you play for it or not?
Well, you just named two guys that are elite skilled players.
Yeah.
So, but no, hey, listen, that's a very important point, and that's something that if you have a high IQ of the game, you're not avoiding contact. You just know where it is,
mm-hmm.
and you know how to go into a pile. You know how to protect yourself. You know how to. And it's funny. You look at Steven Stamkos' 100-point last night. His 100th point. He won a battle in the corner on a D, and he won it correctly and got position and fed Kucherov. And that's what a guy like Mitch Marner does in his sleep. Kaner does in his sleep. All the small guys that are in the game do that very well, or they wouldn't have reached this plateau.
Adam, you, of course, are the president of your Oates Sports Group, and you work with players individually. And if I could use the term dress rehearsal for a regular season, this is when Broadway starts for many of these guys. What's it like for you working with individuals throughout the playoffs here? What is the main focus to pick out new things moving forward, or reminders of what they were able to learn out of you or the experience of working with you over 82 games?
You know what? Great question, Kyper. I would say it's more at this time of year reminders. You're trying to play the team system, win a hockey game. You're playing the same team 7 times. What are the habits? What are the habits you see? What's going on? Are you doing well? Whether it's winning a face-off or what we just talked about, winning a battle, net front traffic, whatever the task at hand is, are you sharp? And that's sort of like when a team's made the playoffs 2 weeks ago. They're trying to give some guys a game here and there to get some experience. They're trying to not get hurt. They're trying to prepare and peak for the playoffs. So the coaches are doing the same thing for the guys, and I'm just trying to help my guys any way I can to stay sharp.
So things have changed a little bit in terms of offensive output over this past season. 8 guys in the league with 100 points so far this season. Goals per game are way up. What do you attribute to the increase in offense this year?
I think there's a lot of things. I would say that the game, guys are, I would say, a little bit more skilled. Obviously, in the last couple of months, I'm sure you've seen teams' defense have changed a little bit in terms of they're roving everywhere. It's like a 5-man rover unit, and all the teams have incorporated that. I think some of the special teams, who maybe some of the rules have tweaked a little bit, the cross-checking rule. And you know what? It's one of those things where it's kind of been a one-year thing. I'm sort of like watching to see how it trends.
Adam, is there a team out there that's really impressed you? I know we were just speaking earlier in the show about Tampa Bay going from a team that looked like they were completely out of gas to a team now you go, oh boy, are they ready?
Yeah, I would say there's a bunch of teams. The team I'm really interested in to watch is Calgary because, the top line, they're plus 60. I mean, that's unbelievable, right? Johnny Gaudreau's had an absolute fantastic year. Kachuk, Lindholm, the team's playing better. They got some big boys back there. They've had a great season. Obviously, Edmonton's turned it on lately. Colorado's looked good. Florida, Tampa has looked really good. So I think it's exciting to see who's going to be able to survive. Obviously, the first round is always a hard one, and see how it goes. That's what's great about hockey.
Are you okay with 2 top teams, 100-point? The Leafs have a historic season here, and they got to face the Stanley Cup champions. Are you one of those that say, hey, listen, you got to beat all the great teams 4 times to win it anyways, so it doesn't really matter round 1 or round 3?
Yeah, I'm one of those guys. It's just part of the deal, right? Your matchup is your matchup. You got to beat anybody, right?
That is 100% true. Listen, we really appreciate your time, and we want to have you back on in round 1. So hopefully you got enough time for us, pal.
Okay, anytime, guys. I appreciate it.
Adam Oates, Hall
Thanks,
of
man.
Famer, and one of the best passers in NHL history.
Yeah, that's a unique club. Guys like him are in the all-time dishers. It's tough to know where the great scorers start and the great passers begin. End. They all seem to go together.
So you brought
Curry
up
and Gretzky.
You brought up that thing, Matthew's Marner. You brought up that thing with Oates at the end there about the matchup. And Luke Fox had a great tweet today about the matchups with point percentage. Would you like me to read it off?
Sure.
So the NHL playoff matchups today, but with overall points percentage seeding in the brackets. So Florida Panthers have the best points percentage. They're first versus Washington, who's 11th. Carolina versus Boston. Carolina 3, Boston 10. Toronto 4, Tampa 7.
Top downs.
New York Rangers 8, Pittsburgh 13. So that's the Eastern Conference. I could go through the West, which is much more 2 versus 16, 5 versus 15, 6 versus 9, 12 versus 14, Edmonton, LA Kings.
12 versus 14.
So that's that is a bit of an outlier, but the Leafs are
4-7.
The Leafs are an outlier the other way. They are getting screwed here. They're getting screwed. I'll say it. I know this makes me sound like a big homer, but they're absolutely getting screwed.
Tampa's getting screwed if they lose.
Sure. Yeah, I'll hear that.
Tampa's getting screwed too.
I'm actually trying to pump up Sammy here, Super Leaf fan.
You know what though? I'm totally on Sam's page with one thing is, everyone says, you got to beat 4 good teams anyway. It doesn't matter. Get out of here. Of course it matters. With all due respect to Mr. Oates.
It matters.
Think it matters to the owner?
Yeah, if we draw, you're Edmonton, you get to play the 14th seed.
We're talking about maybe $3 million plus a night for MLSE.
Right, huge money.
You think they care if it's...
Yeah, and you know what happens in the other
rounds?
first rounds? People get hurt. People get hurt, and you can get a softer opponent. If you can have one round where you're supposed to get through, again, Edmonton and LA comes to mind as the outlier there. If you can get that, other teams beat each other up for 7 games. Let's say Vegas gets in and they got to play Colorado 7 times, or Nashville, Calgary. These guys come out the other side of their wars just bruised and bleeding. At least you'd like to play those teams when they're potentially missing some guys. I don't want to play the best teams first.
Yeah, the first round of the playoffs is always the most intense. Honestly,
everyone's at their full capacity.
Obviously the games get bigger as you go further down the line, but the games get
you're shot out of a cannon. First of all,
that's what I mean. Think back to what
first
that
5 minutes.
I always joke about us watching that first Tampa Florida game last year after watching Leafs Habs, no fans in the building. And then you go to Tampa versus the Cats, and it's oh my God, people are slamming each other into the boards. The fans are going nuts.
Yeah.
The first round is a war,
and
always.
That's where you hope the Leafs will be ready, because Tampa's going to come at you. And I think you mentioned it earlier. One of you guys mentioned Mikheyev all of a sudden.
Yeah, been a scrap. Right? He was at who was at him the other day? Gagne was at him.
We didn't see that. For me personally, if I was working behind the bench, I would have had Mikheyev in October eating nails. I would have had him feeling and playing like last night.
Yeah.
Gagne should have been like the 200th guy that he slammed his head into the boards.
Yeah.
That if that guy shows up, if he's the one that can even challenge to a fight, and I'm not suggesting that that's what you want out of him.
No.
But the opponent has to feel like you have that capability now.
Do it, right.
Mikheyev, not only is he taking that speed to the net to another level, but there is a physicality in the last 2 weeks that we've seen that we haven't seen all season long.
Yeah.
I just hope.
I think you just found out he's 6'4".
Yes. And I hope it's not too late.
Yeah.
So he could bring it. I don't know if he's going to bring it every other night, but if he can bring it 2 or 3 times in a series, it may be enough for to help the Leafs advance.
Yeah.
But I just don't know if he had enough practice during the regular season to now do it
He
for
did
2
get
months.
to watch Bunting do it all year. Can implant the Bunting
Bunting's
chip
too light.
into him. I know. That's the saying.
He's just too light.
Implant the Bunting chip
Bunting's
into
on his
Mikheyev's.
ass drawing penalties.
Yeah.
That's his game.
But if Mikheyev would play like Bunting minus the being on the ice part,
Correct.
that would be
Correct.
really nice.
But that's what we're going to see in the first 5 minutes. Guys just running each other, sending messages, and who's got the ability to withstand it and carry it out so it pays off in game 5, 6, and 7.
You and I were looking at some hits per 60, some hits per game stats before we came on air. I'd like to know how many hits occur in the first 5 minutes of game 1 of playoffs in general. Like the spike has to be through the roof. It's just bang, 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 bang out of the gates.
And how are they going to call it?
Yeah, great question.
So much rides on that.
Especially for the Leafs.
Yeah.
Who will most often be the receivers. They're not initiating that contact. They want the puck. They want puck possession. They want to go into their cycles. They love their wide turns, as we saw Matthews on a power play or Nylander starting a cycle. That's their game. It's not running people through.
Last night, Detroit had the lowest offensive zone time. We get those Sport Logic things I've ever seen. They had the puck in the O-zone last night, 60-minute game, 2 minutes and 17 seconds.
No.
That's what they had, the actual possession at even strength.
Oh, my God.
So, they played a non-opponent last night.
Wow.
Forgot to mention that earlier in the show.
That's brilliant.
And it was 25 minutes. You're like, is this going to end up 1-0?
I know.
Which I thought was actually a good sign for the Leafs. That
they didn't just open it up.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
They just
Kept Detroit
there's
to 20.
just that. Hey, you're going to play playoff games when it's 0-0.
Get comfy.
Midpoint of the second period.
Yeah,
and be patient. Wait for your opportunity.
Yep, for sure. Then Nedeljkovic kept the minute and they didn't push. That to me is where the breakdowns happened against both Columbus and Montreal. Was they had trouble scoring. Right, they got the other goalie played really well. And all of a sudden you saw them push and think offense. And the second they'd get thinking too far that way, odd man rush the other way, goal in the net.
Okay, let's take a quick break. We've got Sean Reynolds, Sportsnet reporter based out of Winnipeg. He's going to put a bow on their disappointing season, and we'll get into maybe a little Calgary and Nashville and what to expect out west. All that and more after the break. Hey, wherever you're listening or watching, subscribe, give us a rating on our podcast, and hit the like button for our boy Sammy.
Please.
Nick Kypreos,
subscribe would be great.
Justin Bourne, back after these messages.
real Kyper and Bourne on Sportsnet 590 The Fan.
As happy as some markets are in this country and excited, some disappointing ones too.
Yeah.
A lot of people, I think, in this building picked Winnipeg to win the Stanley Cup.
Yeah, Winnipeg, and I had a couple of bets about Vancouver making the playoffs. They did not. So, yeah, a couple of disappointing Canadian teams this year that had higher expectations.
Yeah, and we'll get Sean Reynolds on the horn now. Let's welcome in Sportsnet reporter based out of Winnipeg. Sean, how are you? Thanks for doing this.
Yeah, I'm great, gentlemen. Thanks for having me.
We're just talking about some markets in this country a little disappointed. Would you put Winnipeg at the top of the list?
Oh, extremely disappointed. And I have to say, not just within the fan base that has been, about this for a long time, waiting for this team to kind of kick in and the real Winnipeg Jets show up, and that never happened, or this was the real Winnipeg Jets all along. But this is an organization that has typically in the past conducted its business in private. They don't talk a lot in the media about what goes wrong or what's happening with this team or what this team needs. But that changed in the last couple of weeks. There's a lot of players that have voiced their disappointment in what has happened. Neil Pionk described their season as being embarrassing yesterday. This has not been the Winnipeg Jets way for a long time. So to hear the players coming out and talking in this fashion, it's kind of eye-opening for us in the media here who are not used to that happening.
So
can I just talk about Neil Pionk a little
Please
bit,
do.
just in terms of now? I don't know Neil well, but is that because you're dealing with a market there that is a little different than majority NHL markets? It's a big little hockey town. Do you know what I'm saying? Is he trying to make sure that he makes it clear to the fan base we are as disappointed as you are?
Yes, I think the answer to that is yes, but that hasn't happened here in the past. And I mean, one of the reasons you go back to the big secret that was kept when they were bringing the Winnipeg Jets back for so long, that needed to be kept private. And it seemed like True North as an organization kind of kept that secretive approach once the team arrived here. Paul Maurice, it seemed to be one of his hallmarks. He never really said bad things about this team, even when there were things that could be said bad. I mean, last season, they lose in the second round to the Montreal Canadiens in what was analytically one of the most lopsided series we've ever seen in the playoffs before. They got destroyed by the Montreal Canadiens, and their response was to talk about being one of the top 8 teams in the league, and their goaltender said they weren't just on the cusp of winning a championship, but they were on the cusp of putting together a bunch of championships and raising their name to the Montreal Canadiens and the Tampa Bay Lightning and teams like that. So this is a team in the past that has always kind of chosen to smell the roses and talk about them in front of the fan base and in front of the media. That changed. Like, something's different here. It's not because of this market. It's in spite of what's happened in this market that all of a sudden we have a bunch of players coming out and really pointing out what went wrong this year and saying that it was unacceptable. Most of the players who are pointing it out are also pointing the finger at themselves. So it's not one of these things where guys are trying to pass blame, but there's a level of ownership this season that I don't really feel like I've covered before here in this market. And it's interesting to see what happens because in my opinion, and Kyper, you'd be a great guy to talk about this because you've been in these locker rooms before, but it really feels to me like the genie is out of the bottle and you can't get it back in. Once you've said those things and once the players have shown that they think things were unacceptable, that the effort was unacceptable, their preparation, those are things that if you're, the coaches or the general managers, they're out in the public discourse now. That has to be addressed once those comments are out there.
Do you think, is it possible that some of the shine was off because of the Kevin Cheveldayoff stuff earlier in the season where it seemed like some fans weren't as sure about his stewardship of the team?
I don't think so.
No?
I'm not for a second saying that there weren't some people in this market who weren't happy with how that shook down. We saw enough of it in our Twitter mentions to know that there were some people that didn't like that. But I mean, we also know that Twitter is by no means an accurate measure of these things. So some people out there were upset. I don't look at this, though, as being something that was a turning point for the team.
No.
This happened before Paul Maurice left. It's starting to look more and more that whatever the issue is behind the scenes here, that the Jets admittedly were not preparing properly, we're not putting in the right effort, we're not playing the right way. These are looking more and more not as symptoms of Paul Maurice leaving this team, but maybe the cause of him leaving this team.
Well, and by Paul leaving, it was supposed to correct some of that with a different voice. That never happened, Sean.
No, not at all. And I mean, that's one of the things that's going to be interesting as the Jets try and figure out what they're going to do in this offseason here. Because like I said, there's so many questions that are coming out about how this team prepares and wasn't prepared and the effort. And those are things that, that no one is pointing fingers squarely at anyone, but we all know that those are issues of leadership, right? And if you're a leader in this dressing room, when those kind of claims come forward, it falls, under your umbrella. And Blake Wheeler admitted as much. So when these things are happening, you know that there's expected to be change, but the review that takes place here is going to be about the players. It's going to be about the coaching staff, but I would believe it would have to be about Kevin Cheveldayoff as well, because the storyline here for 3 straight seasons has been that the Jets were just plugging their D-line, their D-core, 2 players away from this being a championship contending team. Well, you didn't plug it 2 years ago. You didn't plug it last year. You plugged it this year and it didn't work. So that philosophy that they've been leaning on for 3 years, that wasn't the problem. Now you're trying to figure out the problem, but you can't really you didn't learn a lot about coaching with this team the way teams like Vancouver did or Edmonton did by adding new coaches with different philosophies, because you basically promoted a coach from the same bench that didn't really change up any of the systems, maybe tweak the philosophies slightly, but we didn't see what this team looks like, what this roster looks like with an entirely different voice. And because of that, there's a massive question mark. I say this, I bring this up because Kevin Cheveldayoff at that moment in time had a chance to go in a different direction, to try a different philosophy. He didn't do that. He also had a philosophy that the last 3 years he thought was the problem. It's turned out it doesn't look like it's the problem. So those are a lot of strikes that you have to address and try and figure out if Kevin Cheveldayoff is the guy who knows what's wrong with this team and knows how to fix it going forward.
The Jets feel a lot like the Flames, and I know everyone's going to hold up the Flames for the next 100 years as an example of a team that had talent and had a tough year and feels like they could turn it around really quick. The Flames, they get Daryl Sutter, and all of a sudden they find their stride a little bit. The Jets don't feel like they're that far away because they do have talent on this roster. Are they able to do much with their salary cap situation to add or change the look of this team? Because they have a lot of money tied up in, Blake Wheeler and Mark Scheifele.
Well, and that's just it. You've got Pierre-Luc Dubois, who they want to sign long-term, who's going to need a new deal, and there's going to be money going there. That's probably the money that Andrew Kopp sent out the door. But there was such an assured look at what was wrong with this team, and that bringing in Nate Schmidt and Brendan Dillon was going to fix that problem. They brought in players that had 3- and 4-year contracts that was going to fit with the nucleus of this team. Mark Scheifele, Blake Wheeler, Connor Hellebuck, they all, going forward now, their contracts all expire in 2 years. So this was a strategic move to say, we've figured this out. Now let's lock in over the next 3 years. So there isn't a ton of money. If you're going to have, you're not buying someone to come in and solve this problem. And gentlemen, you know this as much as I do. The Jets do not land free agents. Their most significant free agent they've ever landed is probably Dmitry Kulikov or Steve Mason. And Steve Mason, they had to send Joel Armia out the window to solve the problem he created the next year. So there's no money to bring someone in, probably not anyone coming if that were the case. So any kind of changes that you're looking at here are going to have to be cutting pieces out of this roster, moving them and trying to get something back in return that gives you a different result.
We're talking to Sean Reynolds, who does the NHL hosting and reporting for Sportsnet and the Winnipeg Jets. Justin, you brought an excellent example of a Calgary scenario. Forever, you've been waiting for Johnny Gaudreau and Sean Monahan to lead this team. And the same thing could be said for Blake Wheeler and Mark Scheifele. We've seen Calgary go to another level on the backs of Johnny Hockey, but not Sean Monahan, who really has played himself out of being an important asset. Does Winnipeg have to get ahead with Blake Wheeler and Mark Scheifele so one of them doesn't end up a Sean Monahan?
Well, I mean, that's the big question. And the one thing that you would have to look at here, and there's been a lot of people who've questioned Mark Scheifele's effort this season. There's been nights it has definitely not been there for him. But the one thing you have to look at with this player, and it's a graphic. I'll give a sneak peek. It's a graphic we're going to run in the game here tonight. But you talked so much about Sidney Crosby, who's just pulled off 17 straight point per game season. The guy consecutively who's second is Connor McDavid with 7, and then Mark Scheifele is there with 6 straight point per game season. So
that's not a good sound.
Boom.
I think we dropped him.
Does the audience get to hear that sound? Bonk. He's just gone.
Boom.
Man, that's a tough year for the Winnipeg Jets when Sean Reynolds just disappears like that.
Should we call him back? Oh, he's calling me.
yeah.
He's calling me.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah. He's hot. He's on fire. The Jets heard what Sean was saying, and they were like, someone capture that man.
Not real surprising that he got dropped with the season the Jets have had.
No, you're not wrong. We got him? No, we don't have him.
All right, that's okay. I mean, we can.
I'm just working on it now.
Yeah, all right.
Okay. He called.
All right.
Hold on there, boys.
All right.
So what do you do? What do you do?
If I'm Paul Maurice, I just walk away.
It's a show out there.
Someone else figure this out.
Yeah. Well, he's already done that.
Yeah.
So no repeat performances. But who has to go? Someone's going to have to pay a price here to send the message. And my whole point with the Pionk,
you're not getting value on Wheelers.
My whole point with bringing up what Neil Pionk said about being an embarrassment, they are a smaller community here, and it's a fan base that they love their Jets. But you worry about losing their support much greater than the Leafs would ever worry about their support, or the Rangers or anyone else, because it is that small.
Can't pretend you didn't have problems.
Small knit. Do we have Sean back?
We don't. I don't know.
Okay, that's fine. Like constant sellouts from the moment they arrived back in town from Atlanta, but.
It got tough for them.
It got really tough this year, and pandemic, including. Yeah. Sellouts were an issue for the first time. They had to worry about it. Let's bring back Sean. How you doing? Any surprises on getting dropped after the season the Jets have had?
Yeah, if there's something that's gone wrong in this building, it'll go wrong. So we can add the phone issues.
You want to pick up where you left off?
Yeah, I mean, so you take a look at a player like Mark Scheifele. The one thing, if you're going to move him, you're going to move a point-per-game player out of your lineup. Now, yes, there needs to be a better defensive effort on his part, but it is hard to score in the NHL, and it's hard to find guys who consistently score the way Mark Scheifele does. So if you're going to move him, you better be bringing something else in. But, I mean, the question comes to, if these questions keep popping up and these suggestions keep popping up by the players that, there's not enough effort, there's not enough preparation, those are responsibilities that fall on the leadership group in this organization. So if the Jets decide that that they need to move on from that leadership group, or they need to change the culture, I think that starts with the guy wearing the C. He'd be the first person that you'd have to look at. And I think, he said as much recently when he was asked about it. He was asked about the culture. He was asked about the culture because his players had addressed the culture and said it's never too early to start working on your culture, which is essentially an admission that the culture needs to be worked on. And he raised his hand and said, listen, if there's culture issues, that's on me. He's been the guy who's been the captain for a number of years. This is what happens. With great power comes great responsibility. The old Spider-Man saying. When you're wearing the C, you wear a lot of the issues on a team. And if it's a leadership thing or if it's a culture thing, Blake Wheeler wears it.
You know, and just feels like, right, he has a no-move clause. He's going to be a part of whatever comes next here. How does the trade deadline look in retrospect, and the idea that the Jets might be able to kind of halfway it and get themselves in?
Well, numbers suggested it was a bad idea. At that time, they had a 5% chance of making the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
So if you were running a business and you were making business decisions based on a 5% chance that something would pay off, and if it did, it would be a decent payoff. But if it didn't, you'd lose out on a bunch of assets. You wouldn't stay in business very long if you kept making decisions like that.
Right.
But the Jets did. They believed in it. But you bring up that Calgary comparison, and I hear it here in this market a lot. The one thing people don't talk about is how many coaches did Calgary go through before they found the right guy to motivate them and get the results that we are seeing from them right now. Well, I feel like we saw the same thing with them at the trade deadline, where the team that they touted was the 2019 St. Louis Blues, because that team was last place in New Year's and made a miracle run and went to the playoffs and won the Stanley Cup that year. Well, my response to that is, with the Calgary Flames, with the St. Louis Blues, if you're comparing yourself to those teams, you're only comparing yourself to teams that have pulled off something very few teams have ever pulled off into the history of the NHL. I don't think it's a good example to follow those teams. They did something special. But if every team that misses the playoffs says we could be next year's Calgary Flames, it sounds like a recipe to do nothing. And I wonder how often, if we take the numbers for the 16 teams that miss the playoffs and they do nothing, I wonder how often that's going to work out like it did for the Calgary Flames.
So, Sean, what is the first shoe to drop between now and, I don't know, summer? Is it player personnel? Is it finding a new coach?
Oh, boy. Well, I mean, I would throw another in there. I mean, if Kevin Cheveldayoff is looked at as having had the wrong philosophy at this time and already had an opportunity to try a new coach and that didn't work out, I mean, the decision has to be made whether or not he's the guy that you want hiring the new coach. I mean, the one thing about this organization, I've said this on your show before this, this group, including Mark Chipman, including Kevin Cheveldayoff, had a real strong belief in this core. So with the talk of the Calgary Flames out there and holding fast and holding firm, I mean, I'm not ruling out the possibility that they are interested in doing the same thing, the Jets. Mm-hmm. As far as Dave Lowry goes, I think there's a lot of battles that he tried to fight for this team that didn't necessarily work out. Maybe it was never going to work out, though, and maybe these are a lot of the battles that Paul Maurice left because he didn't think he could fight them anymore. I think if you're going to get a new coach, one of the things you have to do is have an acknowledgement from management that you've got management's back to do whatever it takes, whatever you feel is necessary to get the results that you are looking for. And I'll say this, I always bring up this example. I was covering the St. Louis Blues in the 2019 Stanley Cup playoffs, and Ryan O'Reilly, who won playoff MVP that year, in the second round was dropped to the fourth line because he wasn't giving enough effort. And I talked to Craig Berube about it, and his response was, look, he's either going to go to the fourth line and play well and play his way back up the lineup, which means I win, or he's going to go to the fourth line and not give the effort like he's been doing, and he'll stay out of my hair on the fourth line, which I'll win. And it just blew my mind because covering this Winnipeg Jets team, I could never see that tack being taken with Blake Wheeler or Mark Scheifele. Those players would never be benched for lack of effort or for playing the game the wrong way. And you do get the sense there's been a feeling over the years that there's been winners and losers in this roster, players who are somewhat untouchable, players who felt that they couldn't really play their way to where they wanted to be. That's a culture that would need to change. But I guess what I would say is, yeah, maybe a coach can do that, but a coach has to feel that he's got the backing of his organization to do what he feels is necessary. So I feel that shift in philosophy doesn't just come from the new coach. It has to come from management as well.
That's the inmates running the asylum. We've seen that at times in Toronto. I'll admit it. So it's a familiar sort of idea. Last one for me, just on the playoff race in the West. You know, we don't get to see as much of it. Nashville and Dallas seem like they're going to outlast the Vegas Golden Knights. What are your thoughts? Are you shocked to see those two teams hold off Vegas?
I saw Vegas come in later in the year and play Winnipeg twice, and they looked like a little bit of a broken team to me. Now, there was a lot of injuries involved in that, but listen, if you're telling me this at the beginning of the year, yeah, I'd be surprised. I didn't have Nashville being a playoff team. I did have Vegas being a higher playoff team. But watching throughout the season, if you would have told me about the last couple of months, I had felt a long time ago, at least 6 weeks ago, that Vegas was out of this. Nashville seems to have the buy-in that a lot of teams are looking for. You saw that game they played against Calgary last night. What a phenomenal hockey game that was. What a great brand of hockey both those teams were playing. The Dallas Stars are a little bit of an enigma to me. They've got two. They play Arizona and Anaheim down the stretch here. So who knows? Maybe they'll win both those games. Maybe they'll jump up and they'll play Calgary, or they're going to play Colorado. They're the team that knocked off Colorado 2 years ago. To me, they've looked tired. I've been watching a lot of their games, and they all, even the ones they win and have won against teams like San Jose and Seattle and Anaheim, they've all been white-knuckle holding on for their lives with a one-goal lead right down to the end. They look like a team that's tired to me, but I'll say this. This Dallas Stars team is not the kind of team you would want to play in the playoffs. I'm not saying they'll knock off either of those two teams, but they have the capability of being dangerous, have done so before, went to the Stanley Cup Finals 2 years ago when everyone thought that they weren't going to make any noise at all. They look tired to me, but they could also be a sleeping giant. And so that's a team you don't want waking up if you are either the Colorado Avalanche or the Calgary Flames.
Hey, Sean, I hope the Winnipeg Jets bounce right back next year as well as you did on your dropped call about 2 minutes ago.
Hell yeah, buddy.
Thanks for doing this, and thanks for reaching back out. Really appreciate your time. Sean Reynolds.
Thanks, man.
Thank you, guys.
Yep.
I loved Sean's story about Craig Berube and Ryan O'Reilly.
Yeah, me too. I forgot about that.
You know, if we go to a Toronto Maple Leaf comparable, the closest thing we've experienced this year would have been Willie Nylander.
Yeah, but Willie's always the guy, right? Like O'Reilly was the captain.
Yeah, I know. And not fourth line.
No.
Right?
Yeah, no kidding. So that is, it's a profound difference. And I would say he's making a really good point about the Jets, that Wheeler and Scheifele feel like they kind of run the team a little bit the way you feel like.
Why do you think
Durant and Kyrie are trying to run the Nets or whatever?
Patrik Laine is not a Winnipeg Jets, and that's a main reason why.
They didn't want him.
Well, it's just I think they didn't know how to handle him.
Mm-hmm.
They had a fixed mindset of Patrik Laine.
Mm-hmm.
And that was that, you're going to come in, you're going to earn your stripes here, you're going to hang out together. Patrik Laine is not a hangout guy.
No.
He is
Patrik Laine.
He is. You guys go on an off day. You go to the restaurant and have the liquid lunch.
Mm-hmm.
That's not me. I'm going to my room. I'm gonna play video games.
To a sauna. Yeah, no.
Video games.
Yeah.
And sometimes it could be perceived that you're not trying to be one of us. And it's like, no, not everybody is
right
one of us, and it's okay. You are one of us because you're not one of us.
That makes me feel like you're talking about the Jets like they're 1980 and the rest of the league is 20 years ahead, because it used to be more
old school
like
there. I think there was a little bit of that old school mentality, and in hindsight, it didn't turn out very well for anybody.
No. Yeah, it's too bad. It's too bad when it feels like the players have a bit too much ownership before their success. If you win a few championships, I think you can say to the next guys who come in, it's our way or the highway. If you're a team that makes the playoffs intermittently and gets eliminated after, maybe winning a round, it's, yeah.
Okay, let's
open your ideas.
Let's follow up a little bit on the Western Conference because we're going to go to an NHLPA survey, right, Sammy? That came out today.
Yeah, and this is one of my favorite days of the year when that comes out.
Okay,
there's tons interesting, but Vegas we should probably talk about.
Yeah, definitely. Last night, really good hockey game.
Which one?
Vegas.
Yeah.
Dallas.
Nashville, Calgary was great.
Yeah, it was good too.
Yes, I know.
So, what is the percentage now? And the reason why Vegas is still alive is because they earned a point last night in overtime.
Mm-hmm.
But they need to win 2 more games in regulation. If I'm not mistaken, it's Chicago and St. Louis.
On a back-to-back.
Mm-hmm. And Dallas has to lose both their games in regulation as well.
To Anaheim and Arizona. That's who they have.
So my question to you is, as you went last night down the stretch, why didn't DeBoer pull his goalie tied?
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
Well, sorry.
I don't know. That's because it's so.
Okay.
Again,
not hockey. No, Kipper's right.
For the chance to stay alive.
Yeah.
Because you earned a point to stay alive. But tell me what those odds are of winning both in regulation and Dallas losing both in regulation.
2.9%.
So you didn't take a chance, and I'm going to play analytics here, and no numbers.
You're bang on.
No numbers. But what are the odds
scoring an empty netter?
Of scoring an empty netter? Is it 50-50? Not even close.
No, but even if it's 30%, right? A power play is 20%. So if it's 20 to 25 or whatever it is.
And
much better. Of getting a point there than.
Much better.
And
of
keeping
scoring.
Dallas from getting a point.
Your odds are much better of scoring with an extra attacker than they are than your stinking 2% now.
Yeah. Yeah. They get an empty netter last night. The points are 92-94 instead of 95-91. Yeah, they're cooked. They're cooked. He should have done it. And I mean, my goodness, this Vegas team, I mean, I've been watching them lately because this is interesting. You know, I know he's been through a lot and he's been traded and he had surgery, but let me just say, Jack Eichel's not been very good. I know he's got the most goals on the team since he's got there, but he's not been very good, fellas. Like, he's a defensive struggle fest. Effort's a question mark for me. I understand there's a lot more going on there, and I'm not blaming him entirely, but
yeah, they were the aggressor right out of the gate when Eichel got first shopped or, mentioned, them and the Rangers. And hey, listen, in a year or two, we could be talking something much different. That's how great he is. That's that's where the talent level is.
Yeah.
But today, you can look back and outside of the injuries, there's a lot of second guessing going on. I
mean, a few years ago, I'd have said he is a top 5 player in the league. And now I just about said he's a top 10 center in the league. Like the sort of range we're going is changing a little bit for me in where he fits in. So
wow. There's still a lot of growth for him, I think.
For sure there is.
Off the ice.
Vegas might have the best. Sorry, off the ice?
Well, just still to carry yourself as a pro.
Yeah.
The skill's the one thing.
Yeah.
But it's never been about his skill.
Yeah.
We know it's there. We know it's among the best in the world, but it's just everything else, the way you can conduct yourself, the way you carry yourself, the way that you prepare
play and all that stuff.
And show up, right? And show up when you're supposed to show up.
For sure.
All right. Sammy.
Yes.
NHLPA survey came out today.
Survey says
you want to lead this thing?
They don't watch enough hockey.
Yeah.
Let me just make my point about the players. Every time I see someone talk about like the NHL writers vote on something, they say, I care what the players think. The players play 82 games a year. They do not have time to watch the NHL. They get a good viewing at those guys that they play on those nights, but other nights they're traveling. On nights they're not traveling or playing, they often want to stay away from hockey. These guys don't watch a ton of the NHL. So let me just get that out of the way, because sometimes I see these polls and I'm like, what? Anyway.
Okay, but
you want to start in net?
we gotta. Like, I have not gone through this.
You haven't looked at it.
I briefly looked at it, but I can't even definitively tell you what any of the questions were. So,
Right.
but you're speaking of as if they're voting for an MVP, which they're not.
Right. No, but sometimes they do have stuff where it'll be like, oh, Jonathan Huberdeau says Austin Matthews should, win the Hart Trophy. It's like, well, how many games did Huberdeau get to watch Roman Josi play? I'm just saying they don't get to watch the way that.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, but it's kind of a loose, kind of tongue-in-cheek kind of throwaway, isn't it?
It is. You're right. It doesn't.
Okay. So, Sammy,
Mm-hmm.
where do you want to begin with this NHLPA players survey poll?
I think maybe the goalie is a good place to start because if you need to win one game, who is the goalie you would want on your team?
And this is a great place to defend my point. Anyway,
37.4% of players said Andre Vasilevskiy, who, in case you haven't read anything, is the Leafs' first-round opponent, and he's
Okay, no real surprise there.
no. But the next answer is Carey Price at 13.9, down to Marc-Andre Fleury at 6.7, and John Gibson at 3.5 is the top five.
So
Top four, sorry.
the reason I'm making that point is like legacy lives on with the players and reputation
This is
beyond watching.
Yeah, this is in a perfect world. If
Okay.
everybody was healthy, I think that's the way people would still pick Carey Price second.
Right. Okay. Yeah,
Right? This
yeah.
isn't like Carey's got a bad knee and his career could be over.
I mean, it's a
picking-
21-22 poll of who you would like on your
I know.
team to win one game. I don't want Carey Price. Have you been paying attention?
No. No, I don't take it that way. I take it as if
Right.
if I still had to pick one guy and I knew he was healthy and feeling good,
Right.
then it's Vasilevskiy and Carey Price and everybody else underneath.
And I should say the tied at 3.1%, Markstrom, Jonathan Quick, and UC Saros.
And no one wants the guy with a 930 save percentage who's going to win the Vezina Trophy in
very weird.
Shesterkin.
Very weird.
Okay.
The next one is very interesting. If you need to win one game, who is the skater you would want on your team? Connor McDavid led the way at 42.4% of players would want him, was the first overall pick for if you needed to win one game. The next pick is Sidney Crosby at 17.3%. Victor Hedman at 6.7%. Sasha Barkov at 3.5%. And Nathan McKinnon at 3.3%. Nowhere to be found is the 60-goal scorer who plays for the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Let me ask you, hold on. The first two, McDavid and Crosby, one game tonight, starting center. Who you got, Kyper?
I'll take Crosby.
Yeah, me too.
Me too.
Ah!
Yeah, all day long. All day
Sid's
long.
still that guy, man.
Still that guy.
Competitive, and he's won, and he's still going to score, and you need him to.
He's won. That's all you need to
Defense,
say.
Face off.
He's won.
Yeah.
And
But I mean, the guy who's won 42%.
McDavid's
hasn't won
got
anything.
2 Harts and 3 Art Rosses. I don't know. I've lost count. And he's got a ton of the individual, and he's worn the face of the NHL. I can see the players easily naming him, but I think what's happened over the last couple of seasons now is that like great individual skill, but I ain't giving you the respect of 87 in Pittsburgh.
Mhm.
It is night and day for these players voting. They see it.
Yeah.
They see you're great as an individual, where it's not all about just being the best talented individual guy. It's you've won,
Yeah.
like you just said.
It
and
is-
that's why I think Austin's not on this list.
Well, although it is, Barkov is, and they've done
At
nothing.
Barkov,
Connor hasn't won anything.
no, I
Nathan
know,
McKinnon's
but
won
he's
nothing.
also been anointed the face of the NHL for
Yeah, and he's amazing.
5 or 6
And
years.
he's amazing.
There is some superstars here who need to break through for the NHL. Like McKinnon has that Colorado team has run up against it and fallen short a few times. Florida's fallen short with Huberdeau and Barkov. Toronto, the Oilers. There's some questions for some superstars here. Someone's got to get her done.
Yeah, and Matthews would be right at the
course.
top of the list, and Marner with, hey, talented guy, great job with the 60 goals. Do you make people around you better like Sid has the last 15 years?
Yeah, few people on earth do, my estimation. That's the next step.
So how about there's other. I'll go to this one. Which player do you least enjoy playing against, but would like to have them on your team? Who do you think number one is, Kyper, on that one?
Yeah, that's that little pesty guy in Boston.
Number one, Brad Marchand at 26.4%. And then the next one is Connor McDavid at 18.3.
Yeah, he's not fun to play.
Very different reasons.
Yeah.
And then you got Tom Wilson at 10.7, Victor Hedman at 6.9, and then Nathan McKinnon at 5.3.
Surprised Hedman's up there. You know, like it's not like he
McKinnon,
crushes guys or anything or blows around them.
Yeah, but I think McKinnon kind of has brought a little bit of that Marchand side to him out this year.
Oh, I'm trying to think of swears you can say on radio.
I just sometimes it gets ahead of himself too.
McKinnon.
Yes, I think it
Like he
at
gets a
times
little
it's
squirrely.
detrimental.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Love that
too many.
competitiveness.
It's the eyes rolling back like slot machine.
Go.
Okay, I want to get this one in. I want to ask if you can guess the top five. Where is the best NHL road city to spend an off day? Any chance you got the top
Yeah,
five?
it's where they probably will have the NHL All-Star game every year now.
Number one, correct. Las Vegas. Number two?
I was just looking at best ice. I was like Edmonton.
The home of the China Club.
Correct.
How
New
is
York
it? Yeah,
City.
Yeah,
to me,
you're right.
if you're not putting Manhattan ahead of Vegas,
Number
something's
three?
wrong with you.
Number three, I don't know. Sometimes
I
guys
know.
would sneak off to Vail for skiing.
No.
Maybe Colorado.
No. Fort Lauderdale
Fort Lauderdale.
okay.
Nashville got some love, right?
and LA.
Beach.
In LA.
Yeah.
The beach. Okay.
And this one made me laugh.
Good spots.
Which NHL player could make it in other sports? Joe Pavelski, golf.
It's 11
Anders
players
Lee,
golf.
Football. Zdeno Chara, basketball for some reason. And then golf.
Yeah.
Shocker.
Random guy golf. Just the
I
whitest
don't
dudes
think
on our.
I don't think they're
like the
going to
rest of us.
substitute the writers for the players on voting major awards.
No, I don't think that's at a risk of happening anytime soon. Speaking of golf, there's some good players there on the NHL list. Kyper, you're a pretty good player. I get to see tomorrow. We don't have a show tomorrow.
Oh, yeah.
Are we preempted again tomorrow?
Those Jays.
Okay.
Are those
Blue
Jays
Jays.
forcing us to go golf tomorrow?
Yeah, I know.
And had the Raptors lost, it'd be us. But you get the basketball show because the Raptors are in it.
Yeah.
Love it. I mean,
Okay.
listen, we
And-
love doing the show. But
that
golf's fun.
game's tomorrow night.
Yeah, I am so excited for that. Oh, wow. This is a
Wrong
great
sport, Derek. Wrong sport. We're talking.
You need the
B-ball.
tinkle music from the
I am
Masters.
so excited
Okay.
for that
So
basketball
what's
game.
going on with Doc Rivers
Nice.
Now I feel really weird talking about Doc Rivers with this music, but I'll try to do it. A little crossboard here.
So
He's losing his mind. He got asked today about blowing a bunch of 3-1 series leads, and then he went into this minute-long diatribe about how
Yeah, he basically buried
it's like,
his players.
these guys
See how much
suck.
my
and these
team
guys
sucked?
suck. Nick
It's
Nurse
a
said,
miracle I had him up 3-1 to begin
it's
with.
not me, it's them.
you know what Nick Nurse said? We got nothing to lose.
We got nothing to lose.
Go
All
Raps,
right,
baby.
we're going to take a break
Rappies.
tomorrow, but on Friday, we're giving you a chance to win Maple Leaf tickets. How cool's that? Woo. All right, our thanks to Hall of Famer Adam Oates, Sean Reynolds from Sportsnet, and always the pleasant Stellictricity, Gord Stellick.
Thank you,
Fantastic show. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And we're back on Friday to
See you then.
tee up round one.
I have a question.